In prison, if you have money, you will never suffer. You serve the prison either with your body or with your money. I can tell you Bobrisky did not spend time in prison. Spent 3 weeks and they moved him out. There's no single Nigerian who has money and does not want to complete their time in prison that will do it. It's only if they want to. Spent 5 nights in the police cell. All they wanted to do was collect bribes to free me.
This issue between Verydarkman and Bobrisky has kept on escalating and exposing other abnormalities that has been going on in our correctional center. And with what you are going to hear in this video, that is the reason why whenever they expose little secret of any corruption in this country, do not be surprised that more can come out from those places, because the rate at which corruption has eaten deep in some of the sectors in this country is so alarming, and most times it's looking as if it's beyond repair. Now, Fisayo is an investigative journalist who arranged to be sentenced to prison to see things for himself, which he later achieved, and his confession on this video will now let you to understand why Verydarkman is doing what he's doing. He said that Bobrisky did not stay in prison, and he did not stop there. He said that there's no any rich person in this country that was sentenced to prison and is not willing to stay there will stay there because of the abnormality that is happening there. And another human rights activist who has gone to another correctional center in this same country is also confirming the abnormality that is going on there. And he even went further to say that he cannot call it correctional center because of what is going on. In fact, listen to this exposition from them, and as you are listening, be sharing and also do well to subscribe to my channel for more updates. Let's go there.
I also want you to tell us about your experience about the living conditions inside the prison, the healthcare, sanitation, and food. Then you can also use that opportunity to answer Mr. Francis's questions.
Yeah. First thing I say is, for every investigation I've done, it's because ordinary people went through those systems and encountered problems, and they thought it had to be escalated. So I didn't just, someone went to prison and came out and said, oh wow, that's a cesspool of corruption. You need to find a way to get in. The person went to prison in 2017. It took me 2 years to plan, and in 2019 I went in. Now, by the way, I spent 5 nights in the police cell. All they wanted to do was collect bribes to free me, because I didn't pay bribes.
This is from your own personal experience? From
my personal, we got someone to arrange that. I bought a car, a vehicle. I paid out of 2.8. I paid 500, and I didn't want to pay the rest.
Okay, that's the
claim that was taken to the police. Okay. And then they picked me up and changed the charge to stealing and hijacking of SUV. Person said I didn't complete payment and I didn't want to. So each day they were asking, oh, you don't have someone to come and settle your bill. They just wanted bribes. But I wanted to go to prison because police was not the target. So at the end, after Monday to Friday, they had to arraign me in court. First thing to note is that once the magistrate said remanded in prison custody, and the court closed and they took me down to the holding cell, the first thing the prison warder did, there was a lady who was working as my sister. They told me to go into their office in court, and they told her to peep into the holding cell. I had peeped myself, I saw, and they told her, is that the kind of place you want your brother to stay? Give us money and your brother will stay in our office, because we needed to be there until evening when the prison boss would go around all the courts to convey inmates to prison. The prison warders approached me, I didn't approach them. And then, there was a negotiation, and then she settled for 5,000 naira.
5,000 naira?
Oh, yes. It's on tape. I want him to produce the videos the prison service seized from me in 2019. Because when you say some allegations are unsubstantiated, the ones that are substantiated, that were taped, that the prison service seized from me, produce them.
Wow.
Oh, yes. Not only that, then they came and then they said, oh, in prison, if you have money, you will never suffer. You serve the prison either with your body or with your money. I can tell you Bobrisky did not spend time in prison. Spent 3 weeks and they moved him out. There's no single Nigerian who has money and does not want to complete their time in prison that will do it. It's only if they want to. From there, they told me I could get a decent place to stay in prison for 50,000, for 100,000, for 150. He even said 1 million. This was in 2019.
1 million. So how much are they supposed to be charging you per day for this supposed?
Different special rooms depending on how much money you have. When the guy said 1 million, I said 1 million. He said yes. When Fayose was in Ikoyi prison, do you think he stayed in the general cell?
Wow.
That's the answer they gave me. These things are on tape. I'm not making allegations. These were things that happened to me that I filmed with the secret service. Tell the Nigerian prison service to produce it. Everything is on tape. The warders then told me that the warders in the prison had told the ones in court not to be striking deals with inmates, to wait for the inmates to get to prison so that the ones in prison would strike the deals by themselves.
Oh, because we're changing the warders.
Yes,
by striking
the warders in court.
Yes,
even in court, somebody approached me. You know, the warders, say, who is working on your bill? They called someone. The person, the lawyer, came and said, I work with the magistrate. If you pay 200,000 naira, you will sleep in your house tonight, even though the magistrate had pronounced remanded in prison.
Wow.
Yes, the only reason it didn't work out is I wanted to go to prison, not to get out.
So aside from, so even when you were in prison, what was the condition like?
You get to prison,
wise, health-wise,
before you talk about sanitation, corruption it's an impossibly corrupt system. You get documented as a new, inmate. They take your details and you submit any cash on you. The idea is that inmates should not be in possession of cash. You give your cash to the records office. Then you go back to the records office to say, oh, I want to make a call, I want to buy coke, I want to buy food. They release to you in bits so that you can't commit any crime. You can't do it. They then have, the warders then have convicts. Remember, they're awaiting trial inmates, they're convicted inmates. The convicted inmates know that they have nowhere to go. Someone who has a 7-year jail sentence, a 10-year jail sentence is loyal to the prison warders. Because that's your home for the next 7, 10, regardless of your sentence. Those ones then come to you, being documented, say, out of your money, you will remove 1,000 naira to the woman at the records office, doing the documentation. And we're many. When they allocate, so after they take your pictures online, then in print, they do double documentation online and in print, and then they allocate you to a cell. The prison warden in charge of the cell, you have to pay that one. As of then, 29, it was 1,000 naira.
Per what? Per
just for being in the cell, for nothing.
How many of you are usually in the cell?
So many. It depends on how many inmates they bring in. I spent 8 days in Ikoyi prison. The lowest number of awaiting trial inmates brought in was 16. Sometimes 40 something. Sometimes
40 something in that one cell.
No. Just there's so. On the first night, you sleep in a place called welcome cell. You don't sleep like this. You don't sleep like this. You sleep like this. If you're like crayfish, when you open sardine, have you ever opened sardine? The way they pack, I'm not exaggerating. It's exactly. If Bobrisky spent one night in welcome, you think he will come out and speak to anybody? You won't come out. That first night, you keep asking yourself, who sent me?
Wow.
Because if I sleep and my head is facing the direction this way, the next person to me, the head then is in this direction.
So you cannot turn. Is at the back of your head.
You cannot turn. You sleep like this all night. If there's no how you cannot turn. That's how you sleep. Its punishment is, and the thing is that once you have money, you bypass all these things. So
really,
the prison authorities have to decide what they want to do. Is the prison supposed to be a punitive, or I've never referred to them as Nigerian correctionals? What are they correcting? Many of these prison warders should actually be behind bars themselves. Inmates have phones. How do they have phones? The warders sell phones to inmates. This is not an allegation. Some of the tweets you see are inmates tweeting on Facebook. Now, if you want inmates to have access to phones, yes, whatever. I'm not saying inmates should go there and want to commit suicide because they're in prison. It has to be a level playing ground. You don't bring people in for corruption and then you sell. So I want a phone in prison. A warder then comes and says it's 250,000. The phone is 150,000 in the market. The warder sells it for 250,000, and then that's it.
And where do you get the supposed 250,000 to pay for it?
It's your choice. If you want the phone, are you not the one who wants to? You are in prison. You are in prison. You don't have a choice. By the way, a prisoner, and even if it's awaiting trial, you can't talk to a warder unless you squat. You can't stand in front.
As in literally squats.
Yes, you cannot squat. You can't. If a warder is seated and you want to talk to that warder, you can't stand and talk. You squat. Awaiting trial, you've not been pronounced guilty. So it is that bad. Now, when the system refuses to acknowledge its failings, then there won't be progress. So if it comes on national TV to then come and say there are allegations, that's not progress. They seized my device. So ask them, produce that device. Let us watch the videos. Shoyamba is lying. Let's play the videos we seized from him to prove that he's a liar.
Okay, let me get to Inibehe. This is just very amazing. So Inibehe, no, I want to ask Inibehe a question before I get to Mr. Francis. So Inibehe, let me ask you. You have been in prison before, so first and foremost, I would like for you to share your own personal experience as well. But aside that, what are the legal repercussions for prisoners who have arranged preferential treatment for their sentences? Can they be reincarcerated?
On the 27th of July, 2022, I appeared before the learned Chief Judge of Akwa Ibom State, the Honorable Justice Ekaite Fabian Obut, in a libel suit filed by the immediate past governor of Akwa Ibom State, Mr. Udom Gabriel Emmanuel, against my client, Mr. Liu Ekpenyo. When the Chief Judge came in that day, in summary, armed policemen with AK-47 were brought inside the courtroom and they sat directly behind me. And that was the first thing that happened immediately the Chief Judge came in. And so the proceedings started. Before then, of course, I had already filed application praying the Honorable Chief Judge to recuse herself from further presiding over the matter. The application was never taken, it was ignored. So when the proceedings started, of course, I tried to make the Chief Judge to hear that application. Again, it was ignored. In the course of the proceedings, a journalist with Premium Times, Mr. Xavier Imogdo, this Chief Judge ordered him to stand up. Of course, he has been covering the court and making reports about the proceedings in the matter. So the Chief Judge, in summary, ordered him to leave the court, and then he was arrested and taken out of the court. As a lawyer, I just stood up and said, my Lord, we had thought that the Constitution allows for publicity of trial, and that the court should be accessible to all persons, including the media. Of course, the Chief Judge berated me and then stated that except I was the one who brought in the journalist to disparage her. So I left the issue. I now went to the issue of the armed men who were behind me. I said, my Lord, I have also observed the presence of armed men in court, that this is not the tradition of our profession. Even though I'm not afraid of them, however, it has created hostility and trial cannot continue under this atmosphere. My Lord, may they be ordered to leave the court. The Chief Judge was very inflamed, very infuriated by that observation, and then rejected it. So I then said, my Lord, I'm now making it as a formal application. Because as a lawyer, if you make an appeal to a judge, the judge can say no, but the law allows you to make it formally, in which case the judge is required to make a ruling, write a ruling. So as I was talking, you know, when you are talking as a lawyer and the judge is writing what you are saying, you feel you are making sense, that you are sounding intelligible. Unknown to me, it was my committal to prison that the Chief Judge was writing. It had absolutely nothing to do with the observation. So as I was talking, the Chief Judge just simply ordered me to step out of the bar and then ordered that I should be taken to prison.
When you got into prison?
So from there, I was taken to the prison, initially to the Uyo Correctional Service. They were supposed to keep me there because of this COVID regulation at the time. They took me to Ikotekbene. As I was getting to Ikotekbene, of course, they have, you know, what they call admission. Fisaya will be familiar with that. Admission is when you come in, you introduce yourself, they take your details, they take your image, your particulars, and so on, and then decide the cell you will be, and all those sort of things. Now, the truth of the matter, let's not deceive ourselves, is that as of today, there is clearly nothing correctional about the Nigerian Correctional Service. The system is completely flawed. And I have had cause to say that the correctional service in Nigeria requires fundamental reforms. Nearly everything Fisayo has said is the truth. I can confirm to you that yes, there are what they call special cells. When I was in Ikotekbene prison, they put me in the so-called special cell, right? And 50,000 was collected for that. I mean, I'm confirming to you, so I'm not telling you. These are things I have said publicly. I'm not telling you what I was told. I'm telling you my own experience. 50,000 for 2 weeks. And they insisted that, oh, you cannot stay in the general cell. You know, you are VIP. You know, you are this, you are that. So, and guess what? The so-called VIP cell, there's nothing VIP about it. The condition there is not even nothing. But at least in comparison to the other places, maybe some relative, you know, better than the cell that I would have ordinarily stayed. But that VIP cell is inside the premises of the prison. It's not outside. So the truth is that in the prison, you have to buy space as an inmate. I paid for lights. You know, they don't even, in fact, for about almost the entire period I was in Uyo Correctional, you know, Custodial Center, because I spent 2 weeks in Ikotekbene, 2 weeks in Uyo, we did not have electricity supply. Inmates were the ones who paid for their own kerosene, and they used lantern. I paid 1,000 for kerosene, and guess what? It is the water that are selling the kerosene. Everything in the prison is paid for. The food that inmates are served, you will not serve your dog. The gari is not only bad, it is, I mean, it is despicable. If you see the food, so I didn't eat the so-called food there. I did not drink their water for the 1 month. I was on self-feeding. The system allows you to apply for self-feeding. I mean, if I had eaten what they served, I'm not sure I would have come out alive. Self-feeding, if you write a letter to the prison to say, I want to take responsibility for my own feeding. Okay. So you now nominate either your relative, your spouse, or whoever to be the one to be bringing food for you.
You pay for that privilege?
No, for the self-feeding, you don't have to pay. Okay. You just simply need to apply and then nominate someone to bring food for you. Because the food they are selling, giving to inmates, is ridiculous. So inmates now have to devise internal way of, concocting whatever they are served to make it, possible to swallow, not to eat. Inmates don't eat, they swallow. I'm trying to make that distinction. Because if you say they are eating, it's not food that they are served. And this is something I have said repeatedly. In fact, the correctional service in Nigeria is so bad. The day I arrived in Ikotekbene on the 27th of July, an inmate had died the previous day. The day I was leaving, an inmate had died. The day I arrived with you, an inmate had died. Like it was as if the death in the correctional service is so rampant. The healthcare is nothing to write home about. This is not limited to the correctional service that I was, the custodial center. It's a national thing. What Fithayo is telling you is not a lie. When you see how inmates are sleeping, the point he did not make is that you have to pay for the space. And this space you are paying for is to allow you sleep properly. So there are inmates that, I'm telling you, there are inmates that have to stand. That I'm telling you that they may not even have the space, like to even squeeze themselves.
Oh my goodness.
It is so congested. It is so diabolical. The hygiene is zero. The water is nothing to write home about. The feeding. So I used to tell these NGOs that go to prison to donate food, you are wasting your time. If you want to go to these custodial centers to donate food items, donate on used clothes or whatever, be sure that you are there when those things are distributed to inmates.
Okay, because they never get to the purpose.
The correctional officers, many of them are also prisoners. The only distinction is the uniform. They are grossly underpaid. I don't know if you are aware. They are grossly underpaid. Their welfare is nothing to write home about. So they struggle with the food. In fact, when I was for the 1 month I was there, I had food in excess. I mean, people were bringing all sorts of things for me. It is not only prisoners who were struggling for the food, even the correctional officers. Yes. So the system has completely collapsed. And guess what? Part of the reason that awaiting trial inmates stay for so long to go to court is that before you are even sometimes taken to court, you have to facilitate it. If your relative don't come to give money, right to in-charge court, they call it in-charge court, the officer in charge of taking people to court, you may not have a court appearance. Because there are people, let me also shock you. Do you know that there are inmates in Nigerian prisons today that nobody outside knows that they are there? Oh I met a gentleman from Adamawa who was in Uyo prison. Nobody knew. Nobody outside the 4 walls of the prison knew that he was there. And it's not isolated. There are people in prison that cannot be accounted for. There are people in prison that their court records cannot be traced. There are people in prison that have not been awaiting trial, that have not been taken to court for up to 5 years. Oh my God. It is that terrible. The system has completely collapsed. So one of the things I did while I was living is that, by the grace of God, I was able to facilitate the release of about 17 inmates when I was leaving. Because some of them were released on bail, they cannot perfect their bail. So all I simply had to do was that to make money available and get them out on release. And those that needed fine and all that. So what I'm telling you is that let the minister stop this hypocritical investigation. What the National Assembly is doing, as far as I'm concerned, is a product of parliamentary redundancy. Having not been able to do the real work that Nigerians have voted them to do, they are now distracting themselves with the Bobrisky matter. The member who moved that motion, Patrick Umo, was my senior in the university. He's a lawyer. I know he's a thorough person. But what they should investigate is not even just about Bobrisky. Bobrisky is, for me, the whole investigation to a large extent is a distraction. The real issue is the rot in the system, is the way inmates are treated as animals. In fact, the day I arrived with you, 2 weeks after I got a grade, 2 minutes with you, this assistant controller of corrections told me, I had to challenge. I said, Madam, do you treat people as animals here? I said, yes, we treat you as animals. You don't have any rights here.
She actually verbally told you that?
She said it to me. Of course, at that time, maybe, she had not known who she was speaking to. But she said it, this woman said it to me, here we treat you as animals. Inmates don't have any rights in the prisons. They have no rights. And it pains me because you will literally die. In fact, there was a gentleman who, in Ikotegbene, had an accident. His legs was seriously fractured. The medical facility there could not cater for him. I was the one who undertook responsibility for his treatment. And I did the same thing for several inmates. So I'm just telling you, it's not to sing my praise, I'm telling you how bad the situation is. There are inmates that, they have a call center in the prisons. There are inmates who cannot even afford to call their relative. So the system has completely collapsed. Anybody that tells you that we have this correctional service that is correcting inmates is wasting his time. That is why when people go there, in many occasions they come back, they are more emboldened. They go back to crime. There is nothing reformative about that system. The entire system is based on a mindset of slavery. It is based on a mindset of subversion. And guess what? Many of the people that are actually in prison are innocent. Okay, they've not committed any offense.
I'm going to ask Shoyombo a similar question, but let me get back to Mr. Francis. Are you there? You've heard these very heavy allegations being made by our two guests in the house. So before you even decide to answer and respond to what they just said, I want to ask you, during his appearance before the House of Representatives, Michael Ananugwa, the Deputy Controller of Corrections, responsible for the Medium Security Custodial Center at Kirikiri, referred to his suspension as a social media suspension. How transparent is the prison system when it comes to addressing and reporting issues like corruption, abuse, just like my two guests have said, or unequal treatment? Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much.
So first we'll talk about...
Yes, I heard you.
Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you very much. The issue of the officer in charge of the facility in Lagos that made that comment during the hearing, I want to excuse myself from making comments about that because it's already, there are very substantial, hearings by, different bodies. The Honorable Minister has instituted investigation, and the House is hearing the issue. So I am not, of course, you know that I'm a retired officer, so I may not be able to speak to what to ascertain the veracity of his claim. Now, to the gory picture that is being painted by the gentleman in the studio. That's our own account. It's unfortunate that, just like I said earlier, that we have platforms for reporting characters that are out of place. They are boldly displayed on the walls and gates of every custodial facilities around the country. We expected that if they cannot access these avenues, their relations, their friends who visit them should have used any of the platforms to report some of these allegations.
They've gone on.
Secondly,
sorry, sir.
I did mention. Can I just interrupt you there?
Let me just interrupt you briefly. The two people in the house today have been very vociferous about their complaints and their discoveries and their findings. So it's not a question of, they should report to certain quarters and it will be handled from there. They are telling you now, you listen to their conversation, they are telling you the extreme measures they have gone to. Even one of them has said that there are tapes as evidence. Do you understand? So my point is, when it gets to this level of their complaints and the fact that they've created so much awareness about it, what are the proactive steps that prison officials have taken to put an end to this? Let's leave all the big English and felicitations and what have you.
It's okay.
These two have made it clear that they've gone to extreme measures to draw attention to these severe, dastardly situations that they have described. So what I want to hear from you, sir, is that these are the steps that have been taken, how you've wronged those rights, right those wrongs, and why we intend to move forward to ensure that things like this don't happen again. Sorry, go ahead, sir.
Yes, you know, recall that when we started this conversation, I did mention that several measures have been taken in the past, and they are still being taken to address some of these infractions. And that several officers have been either dismissed or reduced in rank. And anytime some of these actions are taken, we normally publish. I'm surprised that some of these publications that we usually use different media to make known to the public that the authority does not condone any act of indiscipline, that people don't really know much about them. We have internal mechanism for dealing with such infractions. And I also mentioned that Nigeria, I have never come on air to say that Nigerian Correctional Service is run by angels. We have bad eggs everywhere, just like we have in every other organization. I think what is important is establishing whether the institution has credible mechanism for addressing some of these infractions. And before we go further, please permit me to say something, and it's very important. Yes, there is, I have acknowledged that yes, there are bad eggs, but the people are bound to behave whatever way they choose to, but we have means of reining them in. Let me quickly say, with due respect to modesty, that Nigerian Correctional Service may not be as bad as is being painted, and I have my reasons.
But they're giggling
several
here.
years ago. Let us look at the issue of health. Let us look at the issue of health.
My two guests, sorry, sir,
and support.
My two guests are giggling at that comment.
I said, let us look at the issue of health.
Okay.
Let us look at the issue of healthcare services. You recall that some couple of years back, cerebrospinal meningitis ravaged the society. Most northern states, about 19 northern states, were ravaged by CSM. Yet, Nigeria Correctional Service never lost a prisoner to that scourge. In 2014, when Ebola invaded most countries in Africa, Nigeria Correctional Service never lost a single soul. Recently, in 2020, when COVID-19 came and brought all nations on their knees, even some of those highly advanced countries that claim to know tomorrow, they all capitulated, but Nigeria Correctional Service remained afloat. We never lost a single soul.
Can I ask you a question talking about health and what have you?
Let us look at even at that 2000 and I think 2021, a senior advocate of Nigeria accused the Correctional Service of hiding his client who was suffering from COVID-19. When we went into it, we discovered that the child of this alleged patient and his lawyer, they went to the correctional facility. They saw him there. I mean, they saw the inmate there, hale and healthy. Nothing wrong with the inmate. And it was all because we were able to shut down the system and then do the needful to ensure that the disease did not escalate. We also look at the issue of education. We are saying that the whole system has come down to ground zero. Look at the issue of educational intervention and psychosocial support we provide for the inmates. How many of the inmates are doing their running their educational program? Courtesy the support of the National Open University of Nigeria. How many are doing their masters? How many are doing their PhD program? What about vocational training programs? How many do we have in the street? I'm not saying we are out of the woods, that there are no problems. That is not what I mean. But what I'm trying to say is, for you to completely run down the system, that there is nothing good in it, is to ground zero, I beg to say, I don't entirely agree.
Okay, let me ask you another question.
Yes, there are problems everywhere. There's no doubt about it.
Let me ask you, Mr. Francis, another question, because, I mean, let's get back to the issue of what even ignited this conversation in the first place, which is the issue of Bobrisky. Now, Bobrisky is a male person, is a man, but with female anatomy. So in such cases, where would he be? Where was he put? Was he in a male prison or female prison? And if you have cases where you have to take people out of a particular this prison and put them in a particular segment, what's the criteria for that?
We don't have any private prison outside the walls of the custodial facility where we keep anybody anywhere. So if anybody has that counter, or you have evidence to prove that there is an apartment that exists outside the four walls of custodial facilities where inmates are kept, the person is free to prove it. I know the Bobrisky issue, I want to be careful with the way I talk about that because investigations are going on. But I do know that Bobrisky is a man and he was kept in a male facility. What we do, what I can speak to now, is that we profile inmates as they are coming into the facility. We want to know your past record of criminality. We want to know your age, the frequency of your involvement in crime and criminality and all of that. We also want to know where you can better be kept for the purpose of facilitating your reformation and rehabilitation program. These are the criteria we used. And we also look at your social status. You don't expect us, because you remember that the job of the Nigerian Correctional Service is to keep inmates alive in safe and humane custody. Whether you say because of the congestion, because most of these allegations, they border on fallouts of overcrowded prisons, which of course you and I know that is not the fault of the Correctional Service. When we keep, for instance, you somebody like the journalist or an ex-governor or anybody of that status in society, you find yourself in the prison. We will not keep you in a general cell because we know the general cell is populated by armed robbers, hardened criminals, and you may not stay alive till the following day. So we have a way of taking these people to different cells to keep in their own interest. In addition to that, we also maintain what we call back cell or single cell, solitary cell, whichever name you want to call it. And we have different reasons for maintaining such facility. Number one, if an inmate is in the custody and he has refused to show any sense of remorse, he is still violent, he is still breaking rules and regulations, he is taken to that isolation cell. Okay. Isolation cell is called punishment cell. Punishment cell is not as if you'll be taken there to be punished, to be flogged or beaten or anything. Isolating an inmate from his mates is one of the biggest pain you can inflict on an inmate. Okay, thank you, Mr. So Francis. Nobody wants to be isolated. Let me get back. We also take you there if we suspect that you are having a communicable disease. We take you there to monitor how you respond to treatment before taking you to join your colleagues in the general cell. Okay. If we also look at your vulnerability, like Bobrisky, for instance, you alluded to the fact that yes, he's a man, but his body features, shows. I mean, something that presents something that transgender. If you take him to general cell, whatever that is called. If you take him to a general cell, of course you know what will happen to him. So based on that, they are isolated. If you now begin to ask if you are for an inmate to be isolated, will they have to pay money to be isolated? I've told you the criteria we follow for isolating. Okay, inmates. Thank you, Mr. Francis. I don't have. I have to go back. I have to come back to the studio. So Shoyombo, let's get back to you. You mentioned the phrase "prison with your body or with your money." And you also said that you encountered people who had been in prison for a long time, wrongfully incarcerated, but unfortunately they couldn't, they have not been able to get themselves out of that situation. So can you tell us stories, examples of such people and your experience? Yeah, I think it was Inige who said people had been there for long and I didn't know, but I came in contact with people who had no business being in prison. One, two brothers, teenagers who fought on the streets, and the police were invited, picked them up, and there was nobody to bribe the police for them to be out on bail. That's how they got to prison. So simply put, if they had been bribed, if they had bribed police, they wouldn't have been in jail in the first place. I wouldn't have been in prison if I paid the police bribes. They were not interested in keeping me. Every morning they would ask, it's only that your small girl that is a sister that we see. Don't you have a mature person that can come and take your bill? That's all. It was because it was Friday. And then they knew that if someone was in cell Monday to Friday, there was no bribe, then he wasn't going to pay. So they couldn't bribe the police. That's how what are teenagers doing? They should be in juvenile
centers if they have to be in Ikoyi prison. I met teenagers.
Okay, but this issue that Bobrisky, which has opened the can of worms, saying that he didn't stay in prison, how often is this? I want to ask you, and also you.
How often? Yeah. It happens all the time. It's just because...
Is it so you are saying that people can be sentenced and they won't even touch...
I'm even telling you that people can be sentenced and they would not get to prison. That's what I'm telling you. Because if I told you in court, they came and said, pay this amount, all the difficult parts of your bill, we'll waive them for you, we'll perfect for you. You will sleep in your house tonight. That's why when people say, oh, justice has been served, remanded in prison, sometimes I just laugh. Because if that guy wanted to sleep in his house that night, it was possible. This is a daily occurrence. While the prison warders were asking me about how much I had to pay, they were gisting. The moment, you know, my sister paid them the first amount of money and they took me out of the holding cell, and then we spoke about the kind of house I would live in prison, and they saw that I was ready to play ball. They were free. The report is there. One of them was saying, oh, the day Naira Marley was... transfers were just going left, right, and center.
The day Naira Marley was arrested?
Yes, the day Naira Marley was brought to court and was taken to prison. He said, I made cool cash that day. Transfers were just going right, left, right, and center. So it is a daily occurrence. Justice in Nigeria is for the poor. It's not for the rich. The exceptions are one, when the victim of the crime, if a crime has been committed, when the victim is rich or powerful or connected, or the media has become invested in that case. There's some cases that go viral and then the attention of the media is on it, yes, and then they know that, yes.
But how can they be, let me ask you, Nibe, how can you ensure that these prisoners are actually where they're supposed to be? Should there be independent bodies that, you know, look into this to monitor prison officials and ensure equal treatment for all inmates, but primarily to ensure that these people are actually there physically serving this sentence?
One thing I can tell you for free is that if there is such isolation or preferential treatment given to an inmate to serve his term outside where the inmate is supposed to serve, it is not a decision that a single correctional officer or just somebody...
No, but I'm saying a body created just to supervise this.
I'm going there. I'm just placing it to you that it is not a decision. It is not an action that somebody of low...
It's a collective effort.
It has to be somebody high up there. Because if there is one institution that has a good record-keeping system, or a system that looks like a good record system, it's actually the correctional service. In fairness to them, favor your nose, every single day, they have what they call a roll call. They will go across the cells and collate the number of inmates that have passed the night there, send it to their headquarters. Now, those numbers can be manipulated, no doubt. But there is a process. That is why the whole Bobrisky thing, I said it is not difficult. If you want to know whether Bobrisky spent 6 months inside the 4 walls of the correctional service, if the minister is serious and you want to do that investigation, it's simple. Simply go to go to that place, talk to the inmates in the absence of the correctional officers. You will know the truth. Yeah. If you want to do an investigation and you want to take testimony of just the officers, you are wasting your time. Go and talk to the inmates in the absence of the correctional officers, because as long as the warders are there, they cannot talk. No prisoner, no inmates.
And without prior notice, if I may add. Without prior notice.
If you give them notice you are coming, they will arrange, they will change it. In fact, they can swap the cells. Everything will be rearranged. Yeah. So I know that the rot is deep. And when the man in the Abuja studio was saying they have health, it's just dancing around the issue. I was sick. I was sick when I was in Ikotekbene. I was down with malaria. I had to order my own medication outside. I had to also buy for other inmates. In Uyo, I bought inhaler for not less than 2 inmates who were asthmatic. They could have died. So anybody that tells you that we have this wonderful healthcare plan, he's just deceiving himself. And I have to share this personal experience so that people will know how bad the system is. The other point I wanted to make is that I am talking to you today as a victim of the Nigerian criminal justice system. I would have just been, making theories, speaking what is written in the book, pretending to understand the system as a lawyer. If I had not personally undergone that horrendous experience, If I had not been a victim of the Nigerian state and be wrongly detained for 1 month, I would not have known how flawed, I would not have known how fundamentally defective the criminal justice system is. If you are going to solve this problem, which I believe the government is not ready for, they are just deceiving themselves. You have to start with the police. The reason why these places are congested is not really so much the fault of the correctional service. They may have fault in terms of documentation taking inmates to court. It is the police. Every single day, go to Oba Magistrate Court in Lagos. See the number of people that are being rounded up, arraigned in court and remanded. Look at the number of people that are being sent to the custodial centers on a daily basis, on civil matters, on flimsy reasons, because they don't have money to submit to the extortion demand of the police. The police is the major culprit of why our correctional service is congested. And I'm telling you this based on what I have seen. If you are going to solve this problem, you need to look at the courts, you need to look at the police. The police is the major culprit, and then you need to look at the correctional service. Today, the President Tinubu administration is not ready for that conversation. The minister who is acting like he's surprised, taking video and pictures with VDM, those things are just for social media entertainment. If the minister is serious, he knows how deep the rot is. I don't think he has the political will to address it. I don't think the government is willing or ready to reform the criminal justice system, because the rot has gone so deep, so deep. Some of the things I'm telling you here is just the tip of the iceberg. It is that bad. You need to see the food these inmates are served. You weep for humanity. You weep for humanity what they are served in the name of food.
You get the point. Now, Fisayo is not just saying this. He said that he recorded a secret video there, which they seized from him. And if they want to doubt him, they should go and provide this video and play it so that everybody will see what is going on. And the other person is also confessing about his experience in another center, which is also not good. In fact, share your thought with me on the comment section. And of course, you know the vibe now. Click on that subscribe button, follow, and share for more updates. Because like this, we will